Hi, I'm Cameron, and I don't just read comics, I love them. Welcome back to another episode of Cameron Reads Comics. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Batman, Rise and Fall of the Batmen Omnibus by James Tynion IV. So let's just hop right into it. First and foremost, this omnibus collects the DC Rebirth Detective Comics run, which, from an accessibility perspective, is a Bat family book. This is going on simultaneously with the Tom King Batman run. So this is, what the two core Batman books you can always find being released are going to be the self-titled Batman and then Detective Comics. This is just the second tier Bat book. So this is always going to be this series. Batman is the headliner, of the ship, but Detective is always going to be subject to what's going on in Batman. So this book is definitely affected by the Rebirth continuity and all the events that Tom King was doing at the time. So there's some setup for that. This one I like a lot because it's very much affected by everything that was happening in the Batman universe at the time. Throughout this entire run, you see Bruce Wayne Batman wear the new 52, I guess, the bat suit that was designed at the tail end of Snyder and Capullo's Batman run, with the purple and the yellow outliner on the bat. We don't see that throughout, even at least currently in the Batman books right now. He's not wearing this suit. He's wearing a completely different suit. It always goes back to, the basic gray and black bat suit I found with or without the yellow circle. So this one is very okay, it's taking those pieces and it's going with it. It's the way that I think DC always kind of intended events to affect one another. I wrote down the events that affect everything going on in this title. That is mostly going to be Dan Jurgens' Action Comics run, which is to Superman what Detective Comics is for Batman. So Mr. Oz makes an appearance in this book. Then James Tynion, this is not his first run on Batman, and obviously, so he did so well on this series that it went on to him writing the flagship Batman title. Go check out my video review on that if you want to see that. But okay, so he was writing. The way I think about it, James Tynion IV is a the prodigy of Scott Snyder. They were working on so many Bat books together. He was a lot of times and I hate to say a fill-in writer, but he would come in and do arcs when Snyder and Capullo weren't on the run in the New 52, which was a handful of issues. But he also co-wrote Batman Eternal, the 52 issue weekly series that went through in the New 52, Batman and Robin Eternal, the sequel series to the first one that's 26 issues. He ends up writing Batwoman. He writes some of that. So everything that Tynion runs, and you can kind of take, you can understand how a writer is going to reference the characters they wrote, they created within their previous work on this character. So a lot of the stuff that affects this is, previous things that probably New 52. I'd say to read this, that's necessary reading, at least for a deep understanding of what's going on in character relationships. But he's referring to a lot of his other Batman stuff. Catch-22 is, for you guys, I have not read Batman Eternal, Batman and Robin Eternal, Batwoman. I've only read the New 52, within continuity up to this point. So that being the case, you guys can note as well, I'm not... I didn't have too hard of a time reading this. The most important thing to understand going into this isn't even the New 52 Batman stuff. It is the peripheral characters, because like I said, this is a Bat family book. This is the entire Batman team. I think this is, for my money, and I'll double check, but this, for my money, the initiation of the Gotham Knights that has now been picked up as a series. So we've seen it before. Okay, so now let's talk about the characters, because there's a lot of characters in this book. We're going to talk about who they are, where they've been, if you've heard of them. So obviously, number one, there's Batman. I'm not even going to talk about Batman. I'll talk about him from the narrative stuff. If you're watching this video, I don't believe this is going to be your first exposure to Batman. Anyways, next up we have Batwoman Kate Kane. She is Bruce's cousin, the Batwoman. Really great character that's blown up in the last few years. Love her. I think her first appearance is in 52, the weekly series, the original 52. Go check that out. It's really good. My favorite Robin, now not being Robin, known as Red Robin, Tim Drake. He is the third Robin after Jason Todd. And I put, he's also the best Robin because that is true. That is actually a fact. Anyway. Next, we have Spoiler, who is Stephanie Brown. She is Tim's girlfriend, significant other, on-again, off-again relationship. And she is a supervillain's daughter, the Clue Master. That's part of her origin. Then you have Orphan, Cassandra Cain, who is the daughter of David Cain, who is a super spy, a part of Checkmate. He is kind of a big part of Ed Brubaker's Batman run back in the mid-2000s. So, and then there's a couple like cool ones. Clayface, Basil Karlo, who was a supervillain. There's multiple iterations of Clayface. There's Matt Hagen, there's Basil Karlo. There's, honestly, there's at least 5. And I'm getting that from like my many years I spent reading and rereading the DC Comics Encyclopedia printed copy. I love that book. But yeah, there's a bunch of clay faces. So Basil Karlo, who I'd say Basil Karlo and Matt Hagen, the ones I named, are the most famous ones. So he is the most surprising character in the story in so many ways. His whole arc, briefly, and I'll get more into it about his team dynamic stuff, but he is tackling his inner demons to see if he can be a hero within this story. And so it's like, as shocking as it is for me to tell you that Clayface is a part of the Gotham Knights, the way that they make that work and make it an arc, and an ongoing arc throughout the series was really, really great. Then we have Azrael. In this run, like, they kind of revamped his origin and stuff. Really, all you need to know is that he is a part of the Order of Saint Dumas. He's kind of like a monk, uber Catholic guy. In the 90s, he took over the Batman mantle and became Batman, and that was the whole Nightfall. How he didn't become Batman anymore is what you need to be reading. And also, if you really actually want a great understanding of who he is, go check out Batman Curse of the White Knight, the sequel to Batman White Knight, all that Sean Gordon Murphy stuff. Really, really good. He is a part of this story. And then finally, we have Batwing, Luke Fox, son of Lucius Fox, the guy who is making Batman's gear. Pretty much he makes the Batmobiles. He's who makes the gizmos for all intents and purposes. The first and main villain, I think, of this entire arc is actually Bruce's uncle. And it is Kate Kane, Batwoman's father, so it's Bruce's uncle. It is on the Kane side. So fun fact, I don't know if you guys know this. I love this. Jacob Kane, so obviously Batman is Bruce Wayne. Thomas Wayne is his father. Martha Kane is his mother. But the fun fact about the Kane thing is that Batman was originally created by Bob Kane and more specifically Bill Finger. But they they gave the last name of, his mother to his creator, which is amazing. So Jacob Kane is Bruce's mother's brother, aka, like I said earlier, his uncle. And it was Batwoman's father. He is a military general, and he pretty much is he's kind of very much a Thunderbolt Ross character. If you guys are wondering like how to compartmentalize how he fits into the narrative, he doesn't think Batman's necessary. He sees right through everything Bruce is trying to do. And so he hires an army called the Colony to try and take out the Gotham Knights. And, it's actually like the opening arc of the series, and it is so freaking good. I loved it. The next we have is the Victim Syndicate. So these are, I don't think Jacob Kane is quite a new character. I haven't read enough Batwoman to be able to tell you that, but the Victim Syndicate is another new villain, at least to me. It's definitely their first appearance in this arc. They are a group of superpowered people that are victims in accidents that have happened like while Batman and his team are like fighting crime. So one of them, his name is Mudface, and Clayface was partially responsible for her. She's a clay character, but she can't keep her form. And so she's kind of like she can't retain her human form, which is the thing that's also happening with Basil Karlo in this story. But she's a victim of his acts, and that whole team, the Victim Syndicate, is made up of victims who are trying to now get rid of superheroes because their lives have been ruined, which is amazing. And I feel like that's something that should have been like, we've seen it before, but I feel like that is something like an arc in comic books that is not tackled enough. I just think that my number one thing always is like ramifications. And so a villain dedicated to the ramifications of heroic acts being done. Amazing. I love that. I think one of the core things within this story that I love, before I keep going within this arc, is even with the character titles, if you know who those characters are, besides like, the newer ones, Luke Fox, oh my gosh, Batwoman, the new characters. A lot of these are referencing the 90s Batman run written by my all-time like favorite Batman writer, Chuck Dixon, who is just like heralded, or honestly, I don't think he gets enough credit, and I don't know why DC is not like republishing everything he did in omnibus format, because he was the first person to give us a Nightwing solo series, ongoing solo series, first Robin series. He wrote the best Batgirl origin that they are currently turning into a movie. He literally just revamped the entire institution of Batman, and he invented all these other new characters. I don't want to give him sole credit for every character that is a Gotham Knight, because I just don't know. But for my money and my recollection, he brought Spoiler into the Bat family. He brought Cassandra Cain in like the mid 2000s No Man's Land era for Batman. Azrael. That Azrael is actually Dennis O'Neil and Joe Quesada, but the entire Nightfall arc, I will give all credit to Chuck Dixon. And so this is one of my favorite Batman titles that came out I like this more than I like the Batman title, because number one, it is a team based in Gotham. They are they're just grounded in Gotham, and it also like focuses on all of Batman's peripheral characters. As I keep reading more and more Batman, because there's Infinity Batman titles coming out, I realize that like I am just so much more. I think Batman's very cool, but I think his peripheral supporting characters are my favorite parts of the story. As I get older, I'm like, Alfred's my favorite, Commissioner Gordon's my favorite, and then like, this book taking the time to focus on all of the members and like validating all of their existence in Batman's continuity, I adore. And so I just want to give a lot of attention and credit to that, because that's what I want to see in my comics, and they can't, like, even currently, well, it's a miniseries, but even currently, like, there's no Batman and Robin ongoing title, which feels wrong. There's a Batman, there is a Robin and Batman miniseries that's only like 4 issues, and I think it's actually done now. But I'll read and review that later. But there's I feel like there's just a lack. Damian has his own solo book, Batman doesn't. But this book, just seeing the entire team work together, a Bat family, and everyone got their own moments. It was just really, really, really freaking good. And so that, suffice to say, I loved this because it just like, it takes place in the universe. You know what I mean? It recognizes everything that's going on in the DC universe, but it's also just like grounded, like Batman and Gotham kind of stories, that's what I love. And it's always, for me at least too, while everyone's paying attention to the big bombastic ones, you know what I mean? Like, and not to say I didn't dislike Tom King's Batman run, that was going on simultaneously. But for this one, I just really, really, really enjoyed, the idea of just Batman being in Gotham. And it was also just like a fun read. All the great moments that the characters had, they were like taken care of. I just freaking loved it. So going into the villains, there's some of these also just feel like true Batman rogues, and like it's just good, snappy, simple comics. So next one up, we have Lady Shiva, and that's what brought on that whole rant, is because, oh my gosh, it's James Tynion is just playing with toys that I have not seen like, when was the last time we saw Lady Shiva as a Batman villain? And I'm sorry if I'm not all caught up, but like in the main 2 titles, like I can tell you right now, for at least the last, I'd say 3 years, I haven't seen Lady Shiva in the Batman comics. And like, I want to, because he's a ninja and she's a ninja, and she's literally such a threat to him. And so she's in it. There's Ra's al Ghul, a great Ra's al Ghul arc, who I think he's now becoming way more of a forefront Batman antagonist. Like, I'd even put him top 5 top 4 maybe Batman villains. I got to think about my Batman villains, but I loved his involvement, her involvement. For a really quality arc too. There's an Anarchy arc, which is one of the 90st DC villains, and they did a great arc with him and Spoiler kind of coming together and like really reanalyzing Anarchy as a villain. It is very it's a political commentary, and how you are balancing that in this day and age is a very complicated thing. But the way that they reframe anarchy, the concept, I thought was very interesting. And so the way that this book did that was really well. It was just like really good old fashioned fun comics, which my favorite thing. We also had two more, and again, like it's just I felt like the series branched out into the larger DC universe. Clayface, obviously hero becoming a villain, almost a Two-Face kind of arc where it's like he's battling his inner demons and his evil side comes out, and he's also really good, and da-da-da-da. It's really interesting. Tim Drake. So if you've ever read Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, it's getting reprinted, and you should pick up the Omnibus. It's that good. His Teen Titans run, Tim Drake comes... There's a future Teen Titans where they grow up and become the heroes, and Tim becomes Batman, and that future Tim that is evil that they fight comes back and fights the whole team. It's awesome. It is awesome. And like, I love that DC actually kind of keeps referring back to that like arc, which, you know, I read out of context, like, 5 years ago, and I was like, okay, like cool, neato. Teen Titans are doing Titan stuff, but to see that that's affecting this, I loved it. Some major stuff that happens, and I'm not trying to be super spoilery. The death and return of Tim Drake within this, that's a major arc affecting every member of the team, making Clayface a hero. Very specifically, I want to talk about my favorite part of the Clayface, and maybe one of my top 3 favorite parts about this entire volume. For those that don't know, Cassandra Cain she's mute in the comics, and so very specifically and very awesomely on her Batgirl costume, she has because she was Batgirl at one point, she has her mask like gnarly stitched over all of her face, kind of like Batman Beyond style, but you can't see her mouth open. She's trying to learn English. She's been literally born to be a weapon, trained by her father to kill. She doesn't want to kill. She wants to do good, and Batman's like good, but she gets an amazing relationship and friendship with Clayface, which is not something that should work, but it totally works. Like, Clayface is, he teaches her English through quoting Shakespeare to her. And if you don't know about Clayface, he was an actor, and he was aging, and so he was using this cream, and that's kind of what made him Clayface. And so he still wants to be an actor, but now he feels like he can't be anything. And so their relationship is one of my absolute favorites. And then she literally can't say anything, and then she'll declare this Shakespearean soliloquy. It's amazing. The interpersonal relationships, I think it was very well balanced. It's a tough thing to do, the interpersonal within this arc, and so I thought that the way that this was handled, I thought each member had to get their own spotlight, but I'd say what I read online from some of the critiques, they just say it's a Batwoman Tim Drake book. For me, I'm like, I love Tim Drake, so cool, neato. But yeah. So, and then there's a lot of stuff with Stephanie that's really good. I thought it was really good. I feel like they gave it their time that it was due. For the art, Eddy Barrows is my favorite artist on this book. I thought he was so freaking awesome. The style of this entire run was incredible. I think when you think about the marketing and the there's a lot of key details, even the font they used to go to location to location. I just thought it was pitch perfect. I thought the coloring on the series was amazing. I thought Eddy Barrows' art was so consistent and so good. He has an Ivan Rice element to his art, but adds a little bit more mood and flash to Batman, which I really, really enjoyed. It was just beautiful. The colors was amazing. And if you liked this, go check out Batman Urban Legends by Chip Zdarsky, because I realized he is the artist on that book, which is my favorite Jason Todd story. And then the other artist, I'd say it was probably 60-40. So 60% Eddy Barrows, 40% Alvaro Martinez Bueno. Okay, so this title is coming out bi-weekly, but these two artists were so amazing. And again, the first time I feel like I also just didn't know because I was just jamming through this book. I read it in like a month, which is rare for me. I don't go through omnis that fast. It probably takes me like a good hot minute, and I get hot and cold about the whole thing. I couldn't tell their art apart, but I think that's such a good thing, like personally, because I thought they were both so consistent. I just thought that the art in this book is probably one of my favorite, most consistent comic books on an art level, and like I absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing. And then I recently found out, because I'm like, I want to be able to tell them apart. How do I do this? Alvaro Martinez Bueno is now currently on Nice House on the Lake, written by James Tynion for DC Black Label. So if you want to go check out more of his art, go check it out because it is awesome. I think I'm like so surprised that these guys aren't blowing up more, but I'm so glad to see that Eddy Barrows is still doing Batman. Okay, now let's get to my rating. This has been a long review, but I really enjoyed this book. Now that I see it, my rating's wrong. I wrote down 8.75. No, it's higher than that, especially after talking about it. I think I'll give it a 9.5. I thought it was just such a great, consistent Batman arc. It was a fun book to read. Batman, people just want to ascribe so much more meaning to, but like I think if I was to come out with a modern Batman book, and this is kind of what I'm hoping Josh Williamson's Batman book is something like this. I think when I think about what omnis I want to sell and what I want to keep, I think I'm going to keep this one because I thought it was really freaking good. Really recommend it. I'd say if you guys are looking for just like a good, fun Batman book to go pick up, look no further than Batman, Rise and Fall of the Batmen. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you have read it or you have read any more James Tynion stuff, drop a comment. Tell me your favorite Bat Family character. Drop a comment. Let me know what's up. Make sure to clobber those like and subscribe buttons. Remember, I'm Cameron. I don't just read comics. I love them. See you next time.